Hello everyone. We are starting second half of Road to Super Bowl Season 3. We are staying in Animal Kingdom. Today we are going towards the jungle with the Cincinnati Bengals. They are making their second appearance in this 10 to 20 spots that are reserved towards teams that are mostly ascending or are stuck in purgatory. And it's kind of weird that we are talking about Bengals being here. I did not expect that. Yet, I still feel like my theory about either ascending teams or purgatory teams might hold on Bengals, and I would call them a team in a slight purgatory. And what does that mean? In Bengals' case, is definitely something else that it means with the Dolphins and with the Cowboys. And that's where I'm going to start this because, unlike usually, we are not going to go straight to the draft. I want to talk a little bit about why I feel like Bengals are actually not in great situation. And there is simple one reason for it. And that's they are a small team market. No, we are not talking Moneyball, Oakland having to go with 40 millions in terms of payroll and other teams on 100 millions plus. We are not talking about MLB where it's like insane the differences. They still have the same cap situation as other teams around the league, but they don't have wealthy owners. And I mean, obviously, compared to me, they are immensely wealthy, but compared to other guys in charge of their franchises, they are not. And what does that mean for the Bengals? It's they are kind of in need to adjust towards that. They have one of the smallest staff in the league, but what I would say more important is they cannot really afford to pay every single star that they are able to draft and develop, because there is just simply not enough cash that the owners are willing to go or even have to put down in front so they could add some void years, fluctuate different type of cap hits in different years, because that requires cash up front and they don't necessarily have that. It puts them into a situation where right now we are talking that for 2025 T. Higgins is on his second franchise tag, which, quite honestly, I don't feel like he should play on. Like, beside the fact that he probably likes to play with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and there, 26 million a year for T. Higgins, I feel like that's value for the Bengals, and that's talking 1 year deal. In terms of long-term deal, we would still be talking about probably receiver at least in the ballpark of 26 million a year, but obviously 4 times 26 would be almost 105 million for him, which obviously secures him for the future. Unlike here, he can always go down and perhaps never reach this number. So for him, playing on this franchise tag almost makes no sense other than really wanting to win with Joe Burrow, with Jamar Chase. But that's not the only problem. They also have Jamar Chase that has not been paid yet. It also has his last year, which is the 5th-year option for Jamar Chase for 21 million. And the same for Trey Hendrickson, who is in his last year of the contract, worth, 18 millions? Yeah, 18 millions. In other franchises, this situation would be probably all 3 guys are going to hold out until they are getting paid. Here, there could be some perks towards being a small team. They might be more unified together, yet the situation is really not in the favor of the players and essentially the franchise, because even if they would somehow make it happen and all of those guys come back and play on 1 year deals, next year, what are you going to do? You can only franchise tag one of them, and you are risking losing 2 of these guys for free. That's obviously a really bad situation. And that's even like counting on them really coming together and like, yeah, we are willing to play on last year of their current contracts. So the inability of this franchise to pay their guys top dollar market really influences how even this front office needs to function, because usually what we see in the way they are drafting is much more in like 1 year or 2 year ahead. Like, we are going to need to replace this guy with someone cheaper because if we would pay him, we cannot afford to pay this guy and that guy. And usually that's what teams are doing when they want to be always relevant, which obviously Bengals want to be with Joe Burrow. But here it's much more of a case that they need to do it because their inability to really play with the cap hit and with salaries that they are going to pay. Just some notable guys that they've lost in past couple of years: Jesse Bates, DJ Reader, Joe Mixon, and list goes on. So I wanted to start the Bengals episode really explaining to you why, despite me being a huge fan of Joe Burrow, he is absolutely one of the 4th best QBs in the league. If you ask me, would you bet on this guy winning his Super Bowl ring within the 5-year span, still in his prime? I just don't think he is in a situation that will put him in any sort of advantage. And I would say the unfortunate answer is he's more likely not going to win the ring in his prime with the Bengals than he is to do so. Obviously, being in division with Lamar and in conference with Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen does not help. So with that being said, let's take a look at their 2024 draft. They started with Amarius Mims, kind of a classic example. They had their starting tackle in Brown, Orlando and Trent, but they were like, okay, this guy is very similar type to those guys. He's exactly what we are looking for in terms of our tackle. And we are thinking about 2025, but also, truth to be told is both of these guys are very injury prone, which results on Amarius Mims almost playing full season of snaps, not necessarily because he would be a standout. As you can see, he was kind of, for a rookie tackle, it was solid, but nothing special. But their inability to stay on the field definitely pushed their hands towards playing Amarius Mims. So, like I said, first year, good performance for a rookie tackle, not necessarily struggling with penalties, allowed more pressures than he would like to. Also, in terms of his run blocking, he left something to be desired there, because he is a huge man. You would expect him to be able to create slightly more of a push, but still a solid rookie season for a tackle. Behind him, they went for Chris Jenkins, and kind of unfortunately, they're trying to invest in their defensive line. Miles Murphy, Chris Jenkins, and they've invested, I think Joseph Osai was also not necessarily first round draft, but they've invested in this D-line with draft, but so far they are unable to hit. Chris Jenkins was definitely a disappointment year one, and obviously there is nothing set in stone in his career, but you just hope that he does not follow in the footsteps of Miles Murphy, who was a first round year ago, who so far did not pay dividends towards Bengals. Then they went for Jermaine Burton, and this guy is crazy in more than one sense of this word, because he has off the charts production in terms of how are you going to utilize him. The way you are targeting him is pretty much always for a huge gains. You can see he has 4 receptions and he has over 100 yards on them. That's crazy. But also he has 4 receptions on 14 targets. Also, he only has 14 targets. Why? Because his behavior off the field, he's not necessarily a solidified pro. Not to mention off-field issues that definitely pushed him down the board, but even off-field issues in terms of within the organization. He's said to be late for meetings. He's said to not necessarily pay attention there. So they even did not allow him to travel to one game because of I think he was being late. So they suspended him for the one game. So they take a strike on a guy that if he figured out everything in his head, he could have been really the answer, perhaps replacement of T. Higgins, not necessarily the same body type because they are quite different players, but the upside of this guy is insane. But unless it's in your head, you cannot translate it to the field consistently. So they need to figure him out, and if they do, that's going to be a really great value. But year one definitely did not go as well as the Bengals planned, and the truth is, it's not like they have a clear wide receiver 3 that Jermaine Burton would have to outperform. No, the room was quite wide open for him to step up, and he was unable to do, mostly because he was just not being a professional enough. Behind him, they took Eric Hall. I would say tight end that's more of a blocking specialist than necessarily a guy that you are going to like count on with his hands. But that was a really nice compliment towards a guy that they've brought in free agency in Mike Gesicki. And despite limited sample size, I think he definitely proved his worth. Josh Newton, the guy that's probably outperformed the most out of this group, and not necessarily one that you expected to really count upon year one, because they had several interesting corners that I would say that Josh Newton probably started the year as like number 4. But eventually, due to injuries, due to some bad play, he needed to step up, he needed to play, and he played very, very solid. Not necessarily solid enough to like solidify his starting spot and really like, this is mine, but given some of the issues that we already talked with the salaries, he might be like a hidden gem that they will count on to be their number 2 guy in terms of wide corners for a future to come. And he definitely showed that this might be a role that he's capable to handle. So very nice find, and a very nice production, or like nice production year one from this guy. Behind these guys, they've also drafted in the 3rd round McKinley Jackson, who is a huge specimen of human being, kind of behind Devondre Sweat, like probably one of the only 2 guys that had the potential to really play nose tackle in the league, whilst also like, let's say, being draftable. Like, this was not their only job to just stand there and be able to, be this cork in the bottle for some cases, but he did not necessarily get too much opportunities. He was really used at some like concrete packages, under 250 snaps, which once again, for pick in top 100 in this year's draft, seems a bit underwhelming, though I would say that this is also about them really thinking 1 year ahead. We will need to replace these guys. We will need to have some huge presence in terms of our interior. We are not sure how, for example, I think it was Sheldon Rankings, who they already got, is going to work out. So they kind of were thinking ahead, and I would say McKinley definitely like did not disappoint as a role player, but is that necessarily worth 97th pick in this type of draft? I would not say so. But these are the type of decisions that I would say this staff room is kind of forced to do, with the regards of how they are able to handle cap situations going forward and back. Dejan Anthony Mudley, he was kind of a guy that I felt like if he was to step up and play, obviously that would require Ted Karras to get injured, which did not happen because Ted Karras is very solid center. But I felt like they found a very nice value in 7th round. Fortunately for them, unfortunately for Medley, we were not able to see it on the field. And I would say with his pedigree and with his like shape, he's probably only a center. I don't think he's like beefy enough to like go to play in a phone booth and play as a guard. So it's kind of a one-trick pony and kind of a cheap backup to have for 3 years to come. So when you look at this draft, you are not coming away with, oh my god, they've nailed it. But that's rarely the case after year one with Bengals drafts, because most of those guys are okay. They might be nice backups this season, but we are planning to unleash them 2025 and going forward. So I will resolve with, it's a bit underwhelming draft so far. Especially like I had high hopes for Jermaine Burton, but at the same time, if there is one franchise that I kind of trust that the second year prospects could be much better than the first one, and that they have a clear plan of how to utilize them, I would trust Bengals to do so, because they are kind of in business of doing that for several years right now, and it doesn't necessarily always end up in success, like we will see with Miles Murphy. With that being said, that ends up our draft review, and let's go and see how the offense perform in 2024. And we start with Joe Magnificent, Joe Burrow, comeback player of the year. What is there to say? Like, the dude just had an epic season. Yet another show that if this guy is healthy, which is probably what in some people's mind separates him from guys like Mahomes, Allen, and Jackson, that he has not played as much due to injuries. But really, when he's on the field, like, dude is absolutely insane. And I know that could be like a second criticism, like, okay, but he has Jamar Chase, he has T. Higgins. Yes, but for years he does not necessarily have a great running game. Like, they are average at best, so it doesn't get like super hell. From his rookie season towards now, his offensive line is at best average. So yet again, really nothing that really hides him. And pretty much beside Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, what other weapons has he ever worked with? Like, what other really quality guys went out there? So I know when you throw these two guys into the mix, like, it sounds like that's insane. But when you look at pretty much across the whole league, most of the quarterbacks have at least two really, really good weapons to work with. I'm not saying this as a diss to Jamar and T, because they are definitely one of the best duos out there. But it's not like Joe Burrow's life has been super easy and like everything has been comfy enough for him to just perform out of like the safe table that was set super nicely for him. No, trust me, Joe Burrow is the guy. With him being healthy, he didn't get Chase Browning an opportunity, but to me, Chase Browning is just an absolute gem if they are able to retain him for another couple of years, because he's able to run similar offense with Joe Burrow. He's able to like really understands what they need from him, and he can win games as he's shown in 2023. Not necessarily like by his own, but he is making enough good plays that with all of other guys on this roster, they can keep the boat afloat until the Captain Joe is back on it. In terms of backfield, it started as Zach Moss room, and the moment Zach Moss went down, they were like, okay, Khalil Herbert, let's get him. Whilst Chase Brown was there, like, guys, guess I'm here. I'm better. I'm better than Khalil. I'm better than Zach. Yeah, year 2 of Chase Brown was really, really good. He was not struggling with ball control as much as he was in terms of college, was in his first year, and he did not necessarily took league by a storm, because that was perhaps expectation with him that he's so twitchy, so flashy, so speedy, that this could be the case. But I felt like he was an absolute solid running back that they can lean towards, and very nice find out in 2023 draft. Am I, with that being said, am I super confident that just in case that, for example, Ashton Jeanty would fall towards them at 17th pick, which should not happen, but if it did, am I certain that they would not pick Ashton Jeanty? Is Chase Brown like a clear number 1 running back that you cannot draft a guy that you feel like is a top ahead? I would say he's in similar situation to Tyler Algier. So if the opportunity arises, I would not put it past the Bengals to draft Ashton Jeanty, though I don't think that he should last this long, but we've seen crazier things happen. So while I think this is Chase Brown's backfield for the future, this draft, this quality of running backs, it might make it interesting for the Bengals to make a decision to bring yet another competition towards Chase. And so far, he thrives with competition. So I do believe he will continue to do so. But if the competition would be Ashton Jeanty, that would be tough pill to swallow for him. With that being said, both Khalil Herbert and Zach Moss was like kind of in this offense. I do still believe that Zach Moss is going to be on the roster, especially if they do not invest in running back room like heavily. If they go for like 5th rounder, then whatever. You can save $3 million on him. Which, like, yeah, you might be able to do so. But he's like kind of a steady veteran, really reliable, but not necessarily athletic enough at his age to give you anything to be hopeful about. And now let's talk about this duo. So Triple Crown winner Ja'Marr Chase, 1,700 yards, 17 touchdowns. This was it. This was his season. It was the season that he was like, yeah, you know, like I was elite pretty much week 1 since I stepped on the NFL field, but you guys were talking like, where is my big season, over 1,500 yards, over 15 touchdowns? Here it is. And he was just like insane. Like the sheer volume that Joe Burrow like put on this guy's plate was crazy, and he was able to handle it with grace, with, let's say, almost like with ease. And it was very, very pleasant to watch him. It wasn't all perfect. He is still one of the guys with most drops in the league. His contested catch win rate is not in like high 50s, which he could be that guy. Though this is also a lot about like he just needed to do everything kind of, or like in most games, Joe, Ja'Marr, and T. Higgins, they were like, we need to win this game for this team. So when we talk about like the drops, specifically for Ja'Marr Chase, I would say some of them could have been a case that he's just thinking ahead in terms of how am I going to juke this guy, because I cannot just take 15 yards here. I need to go for 25, for 30. I need to go for a home run play almost every play, every chance that I have, because our defense is going to let us down. We need to score points. I'm the guy that needs to do it. So I would say some of the drops would be attributed towards that. T. Higgins, not able to stay healthy for the whole season, yet when he was on the field, he is the best number 2 right now in the league. I don't think there would be a better complementary player to number 1. He's one of the top 15 wide receivers in the league, which might sound like not a huge compliment, but dude, there's so many great wide receivers right now. And he is absolutely worth paying a ridiculous amount of money. I do expect Bengals, despite franchise tagging him, to trade him. I don't think they can afford to pay him, Ja'Marr, and Trey Hendrickson. And from these 3 guys, T. Higgins, I would say, is the guy that you can go forward and feel it the less. I'm not saying you are not going to feel it, because you will. Like, dude, you will feel it. It's clear when you have these 2 guys out there, the defenses are like, well, what are we going to do? Because you cannot double team them both, and they kind of both require that with their skill set. So it's a real head scratcher, and just T. Higgins on the field makes Ja'Marr Chase better, and vice versa. But when you look at how bad is the defensive line of this team and how dominant Trey Hendrickson was, and he was pretty much the only good story on this defense where we will talk about it. And Ja'Marr Chase is a better wide receiver than T. Higgins. He's also younger, though it's just 1 year. It kind of makes him the odd man out. Like, I think they can pay Trey Hendrickson and they can pay Ja'Marr Chase. I don't think they will be able to find the cash to pay T. Higgins as well. And with that being said, him on second franchise tag, I don't think he's going to want to suit up unless he's getting paid. So the most reasonable thing for both sides is like, let's trade you. And I think he's going to fetch late first or early second, probably late first. Like, he's absolutely worth it. And there are several teams that should have ammunition to go to Bengals and say, well, we need number one guy. You have him. We are able to pay him. You are not. Come on, let's do this trade. It's going to suck because it's such a fun to watch Joe, Jamar, and T. But that's where this franchise, I believe, is. In terms of wide receiver 3, it was an open competition, though it was clearly took by Andrei Osivas, though clearly just because Jermaine Morton was not able to step up, not because Andrei Osivas had this breakout second year that was semi-expected from him, especially when the defenses need to look for they need to look for Jamar Chase. They were both almost healthy the whole season. Like Jamar was, he wasn't. Joe was also healthy the whole season. Like for Andrei Osivas, this table was set perfectly, but he just did not take advantage of it. Like, yeah, he had 6 touchdowns. Like that might put you into thinking that he did, but he just left so much meat on the bone. He was not able to separate as well as you would like. He was not able to come down with catches that you would hope that he would do in the second year. And what was very intriguing year one did not necessarily translate towards Andrei Osivas really standing and saying, well, this wide receiver 3 is my job. It's not. But Jermaine Morton did even less with what little opportunities he got because of his attitude. So, with the creator of players in this room is going to get quite big, and we will see how the Bengals are going to figure this one out. They found out a nice value signing in Mike Gesicki, real player that was like bouncing around systems that did not necessarily suit his skill set. Now they did. He's quote unquote tight end, but he plays slot wide receiver pretty much every single snap. He is not a blocker, not a great blocker. He is slot. He is really big. He is good for that position, and they were able to utilize him very, very well. I do expect him to be back with this franchise because there's very few situations that would suit his skill set better, as well as having a need for a guy like Mike Gesicki. With guys behind him, Drew Sample, Eric Gold, solid seasons. This is when we talk about linebacker average room. With tight ends, I feel like the quality of this position across the league went higher. So this would have been the situation 2-3 years ago. Right now, this is solid room, but not great enough, not something special. And again, if you are going to lose T. Higgins, you have Jamar Chase, you have Chase Brown, and your first best weapon is Mike Gesicki. Well, Joe Burrow is going to be will need to be Joe specific, but spectacular once again. And it's not like he's getting top-notch protection. Orlando Brown as your left tackle, I almost struggled to keep a good starter on him because in other systems, I feel I would lower him even more because his weaknesses would be shown up on tape even more. I feel like Joe Burrow and his pocket presence, which is insane, his pocket movement, he is really able to navigate pressure, and that covers some of the Orlando Browns' weaknesses. Yet, this is not, to me, a franchise tackle, especially when we look at how much talent is there on this position across the whole league. Right now, he would probably not even crack top 20. But it needs to be said, he's still not a bad player. I'm not going to say that. He's still good enough, solid enough, that for money they are paying him, which is around 16-17 million a year, he is just a slight overpay for this position. Trent Brown, unfortunately, the one knock on him is not a play, it's his health. And once again, he just went down super early into the season. He played well while he was out there, but there was a reason why he was available for like 6 million or something like that, or even less. Like let me check on that. Yeah, not even 5 million, and that's just because you are paying on average for half of the season of his snap. So maybe they will be bringing him back, but at this point it just might be like for him question whether he wants to keep coming back, because this must be very frustrating. You are a great player, that when you are out there you still can do it, but how long can you stay out there? With Amarius Mims, we've already talked about him. He is natural successor towards these dudes and towards Trent Brown. That's where like I would really consider still trying to bring Trent Brown back, and like depending on how I feel about the health of Orlando of Trent week 1, I might even consider starting Amarius Mims left tackle, because I feel like long term you will need an upgrade on Orlando Brown, and obviously left tackle is a more valuable position than the right one. And Amarius Mims I think has the makings of a franchise tackle, unlike franchise left tackle, unlike Orlando Brown. And unfortunately, the good news are not coming even from the inside. You have very solid, just like really average, good guy that you are happy with in center with Ted Karras. You are not paying him too much. It's like what, around 6 million. Like really bunch of experienced veterans that are paid around the 6, 7, 8 millions that are really just doing a solid job. But with Alex Kappa, the thing just did not work out. He was the worst part of this offense. He was clearly a problem, and you might not believe me, but I'm making preparation for this video like sooner than obviously I'm like talking about this, because there is a lot that needs to be done before I can jump behind the microphone. But with Alex Kappa, I was talking and thinking about myself like, dude, you can clear and save 8 millions by cutting him, and you might not have a replacement plan, but are you really going to be much worse without him? I don't think so. And I mean, decent starter might even be a stretch at this point. He was tragic. He was really tragic out there, unfortunately for him and for the Bengals as well. In terms of the rest of this O-line, they needed to turn on towards Cody Ford, because both like Trent Brown went down for almost the whole season. Then Orlando Brown, yeah, it's crazy when you have two Browns, but Orlando missed also several games. They looked and pointed at Cody Ford. Once again, like when you want to like talk about how Joe Burrow has it easy because he has Chase and Higgins, like let's just take a quick look at who is protecting him from getting killed out there. So Cody Ford, really a veteran that just like never really made it in terms of NFL. He looked like solid for what he is, but is this a man you want to be protecting your franchise quarterback? Hell no. And with Cordell Wilson being your starting guard next to Ted Karras and Alex Kappa, he will probably continue to do so, because you can get him like he is in his 4th year of his contract, and he's not all that bad. Like I feel he was slightly better than Alex Kappa, but that really doesn't say much. And if Cordell Wilson is the worst that you have in terms of your offensive line, you can live with that. But you kind of need guys that are elevating the whole line next to him. Bengals don't necessarily have those guys. So low-key, this whole line is starting to be a problem, and they really need Amarius Mims to be a hit, which I think he definitely can year 2, and they probably need to invest in this group as well. So with that being said, that was the Bengals offense. Really, like the trio of Jamar, T, and Joe was the case why they were super great. They had really good help from Chase Brown and Mike Gesicki, but the rest of it was like, hey, yeah. That was I'm sorry guys, but that's like how I'm feeling about it. I don't want to bash them yet again when I already kind of did that during this rundown. But the offense still produced immensely and was the sole reason why the Bengals were even in the playoff hunt, because the defense was dreadful. Yet there was a standout player. That standout player was Trey Hendrickson, absolutely guy worth putting an elite starter next to his name. The most sacks, if they made playoffs, I feel like he would be in conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. But he was really just one man wrecking crew out there, and he was absolutely freaking alone on it. Like, if he was not able to get home, if he was not able to make plays, they just didn't have anybody. Like, let's take a look. Joseph Osai, Miles Murphy, Sam Hubbard, like, at best, this is your rotational pieces, and when your starters are tired, you can lean towards these guys, but they needed to start. They needed to be, one of them needed to be two, and none of them was. So it was really like, okay, we can leave these guys one-on-one. They are not going to win their reps. Unfortunately, that's the case of even Miles Murphy, whom they invested heavily with the first round pick, and 2 years into this draft, it does not look good. Sam Hubbard, like, he is a nice player for being a free, but he should not be asked to be more. And unfortunately, they are asking of him. Like, he is a good leader, he's very, very good run defender, but he just doesn't provide you with pretty much any upside. Joseph Osai, in his final year of the contract, like, again, was solid, and he might be a guy that they could be able to sneaky bring back on cheap. But again, not an impact player. So when you look at this edge group that they had behind Trey Hendrickson, it was like, yeah, we leave this guy's one-on-one, and we double Trey, and he still produced great. And unfortunately, the help did not really come from inside, because Sheldon Rankins, their big signing, and the guy they've already released, justifiably so, was just horrible. He let me check on something. Okay. So he just, like, you brought him to be like your let's say best pass rusher in terms of interior, but he even did not do that on any, like, say, like, starting level type of player, and he was just a problem in terms of run defense. You could have counted at least like one solid player in BJ Hill that was not saving this group by like any stretch of imagination, but was really providing a good floor, solid player that, he should be a number 2 guy. On a lot of teams, he would be a guy that you are looking at and you are happy. He's 30? Yeah, he's a 30. Really nice veteran that is also not being signed for next season because money. And he's going to get probably a solid back around 9 to 10 million. So it's going to be with question whether they will afford to bring him back or they will value him this much. But this is if BJ Hill is the second best thing that you have going for in terms of your defensive line, you are screwed. And you could have Myles Garrett out there, it wouldn't make a difference. Like, Trey tried his best, his damnedest, but this D-line was a problem. BJ was like the only one that I would say, as a starter, I take you. The rest of these guys just did not deliver in terms of big signing with Sheldon Rankins, or they just did not improve with high draft pedigree, like Osai, like Jenkins, like Miles Murphy. So real disappointing season for this defensive line overall. Saved, at least to a degree, by what an amazing year Trey Hendrickson had. Now let's switch towards linebackers, and this is one of those situations where linebackers are not just average. I mean, they are kind of average because they are just good in my eyes, but compared to other linebackers room across the leagues, this is one of those that are slightly above average because they have two very solid starters in Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson. They are able to stay healthy. They unfortunately were not able to provide too much in terms of their pass rush. They were really able to stop opposing teams from running. So whilst the defensive line was leaking a lot of runners, those guys were able to provide very good tackling and very good physical presence. So you cannot just run and run and run on this team because these guys were there. And yeah, when you look at this room, this was, I would say, a success, but also you are paying them solid money, which is 8, 7, 9 millions, depending on the year. That's how much they are worth against cap. And they are delivering solid results for it, but not necessarily something that you would call value. Akeem Davis Gaitier was a nice backup guy that they brought on a 1-year deal, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check on this one. Yeah, they've drafted him in 2020 as 4th round pick, and were able to bring him back for cheap for this season to back this room. And as you can see, they were oftentimes in 3 linebacker set, but I would say 5 years into his career, he is nothing more than a backup, and I don't expect that to change year 6. Solid player, but nothing more. And unfortunately for the Bengals, the story does not get better when we approach secondary, because yet another big signing that they've made in offseason, and I would say big for the Bengals, Geno Stone, was just bad. He did not follow on some of the good years he had with the Ravens. He is still young. He's just going to enter being 26, but this always felt we kind of wanted Von Bell back, but we were not sure that we are going to get him, and Geno Stone was out there, so they snatched him. And then I would say 2 weeks after that, Von Bell is available. He's back on this team, which happened for the second or third time in the history of Von Bell and Bengals relationship, and he outplayed Geno Stone. This was hugely disappointing year for Geno. He had 2 very solid years with the Ravens, but was it much more about the system that the Ravens have implemented than Geno Stone's ability? I would say the next year will show, because I do feel he's going to stay there. One was 1 year, yet another cheap veteran that they are able to bring in. But with this style that you are kind of again seeing, and I'm not going to blame their front office, because this is actually smart. This is smart way to approach this situation. But it's hard to create some sort of continuity for positions and players, then it matters. So we will see if Von Bell makes yet another return towards Bengals. I don't think he's going to be worth just 1.2 million, because even though he was not a great, I would still say that he was kind of a bright spot on putrid defense and secondary. Jordan Battle in his second year unfortunately did not step up. There were chances because, like I said, Geno Stone did not play well. Von Bell went down for a little bit, but disappointing second year for what was exciting, very, very exciting year 1 for Jordan Battle, this former 3rd round pick. I would say the future is still bright for Jordan, but I am discouraged by what I've seen this year, where if you say to me Geno Stone is going to play like this, Von Bell is going to play like this, I would expect Jordan Battle to just be miles ahead of these guys, because year 1 he looked absolutely exceptional. Fortunately, he did not follow on that. And when we are talking about secondary, the bad news did not end there. There is one standout in Mike Hilton. we're kind of this team of very solid cornerbacks that are the best part of most of the mediocre secondaries, and these veteran guys that are doing their job very, very well, but are kind of unfortunately on their own and on the position that, like, it is impactful, but if your wide corners are bad, it's much more of a problem that if your slot guy is like really, let's say, a turnstile. So a great outside corner can provide you more, I would say, than great slot if the situation is that the other guys around him are not great. With Cam Taylor-Britt, I cannot really say that he is not a solid player. I still have him as a good starter, though he was getting burned too much for my likings. To me, he is risk taker. Like, you can see he has production, but more often than not, wide receivers are able to get better of him. So in a world where he could be number 2, he's kind of ideal number 2, because some games he's able to flip the ball towards your side, but when he should be anything close to like a lockdown corner as your number 1, he just does not fit that bill, and unfortunately they don't necessarily have that guy. DJ Turner plays solid, and am I there to say that it cannot happen for him to be a number 1? No, but would I bet on it? Hell no. I liked him, he was solid, but not the guy that you necessarily expect huge things from. Though he has draft pedigree, he was 61. You know what I'm going to say. He was drafted as number 61 in 2023 draft, and he might be just the case that we were talking about with the Bengals. Year 1, okay, but year 2 is where we are expecting you to shine, and DJ was able to semi-shine, so maybe they know something that I do not, or that I don't think about him. But I would really consider him really nice too, but they kind of already have that in Cam Taylor-Britt. So as 1, I don't feel it, and as 2, this job is kind of taken. So they might go with DJ Turner and hope that he is going to progress into that lockdown quarter, but I don't necessarily feel like that's going to be in the future. Beside them, there were some snaps towards Dax Hill, towards Josh Newton. Overall, I don't think the quality of the players are necessarily there are a bunch of reasonable players, with reasonable quality, but they are lacking a standout player, and also they are being kind of betrayed or made look much worse than they actually are, in my opinion, because of how defensive lines was not just able to generate pressure. So we will see if they are able to figure out defensive line, if that's kind of the cure for the secondary as well. And they have some interesting players out there, but I don't necessarily see a standout for the future. With that being said, we finished our roster rundown. Now it's time to hand out prizes. We start with draft hit, and to me that's Josh Newton. I would say he is the guy that impressed me the most compared to what I expected from here. Year 1 kind of needed to step up, with some of the guys not necessarily playing great, some of the guys going down. He took his opportunity and played very solid. Is he your future star? Once again, I don't think so, but for a fifth rounder, this was a very nice find. In terms of draft blunder, again, I still feel like there could be a star potential for GMaty-NFL. If you show me this draft and you want me to pinpoint one guy that I feel like there is a chance that there is going to be elite starter next to his name, it's still GMaty-NFL. Burton. But the chances of that happening are going drastically down, because one of the selling points for him being drafted specifically towards Bengals is like they have good culture. Zach Taylor, Joe Burrow, like they should be able to, put him on the right track, and it just didn't freaking happen at all in year one. So the chances got really slim for that. He is still a potential big ticket, but I would not scratch it and expect, like, it's pretty much the ticket. You are there is some huge price potential, but how often are you going to hit it with the lottery? In terms of cornerstone of this franchise, I know I said it's lazy to go for a QB, but here I just couldn't go anywhere else. Like Joe freaking Burrow, what a year for him, what a comeback from the injury. He absolutely reinstated himself, like even, I would say, like in the eyes of like 99% of guys that are watching the league, he needs to be out there like in top 4. Like if you put Jalen Hurts ahead of him, I don't think you understand football. If you put Jaden Daniels ahead of him, I think you are really starstruck, but still hold your horses. Like Jaden Daniels definitely has potential to enter eliteness. Like he was freaking insane, but the sample is just not there for me. And it's just him, Lamar, Josh Allen, and Pat Mahomes. These are 4 best QBs in the league. End of discussion, man. Like, I don't know what you want more from Joe Burrow than, like, when you actually look at the roster, the help that he's getting, I would say is over talked about, because, like, you see Jamar Chase and you see T. Higgins, but the rest of it, Joe Burrow, like, doesn't have it easy. Trust me. In terms of unsung hero, I could not go for anyone else than Trey Hendrickson, because he was, I would say, the only reason that this defense was not absolute shit show, because like if on average the secondary needed to cover for like 0.3 seconds longer than they would like to, because the rest of the D-line was not able to generate pressure. If Trey was not there, I would say it's going to be like second. We could have seen so many situations in which like QB just stands in the pocket and it's like has a whole day, because the rest of the guys just were not like pulling their weight, or perhaps they were, but they were just were not able to progress what their perhaps draft pedigree saying, what their development would suggest. So definitely you need to sing a great song towards this man. And I feel like they absolutely need to work out an extension for him, because, just like with T. Higgins, why would he suit up? Like, I think him being paid $18.6 million a year is a bargain. Like when you compare that to other top edge rushers that are actually being paid, it's like at least $10 million less that he is worth. And there is no like security for him going forward. So yet another player that I do expect to hold out in case front office cannot manage to extend him. In terms of blunder, or not a blunder, but in terms of flop, there were several guys that I could have gone for. Sheldon Rankings, for example. I would say Zach Mox necessarily did not meet expectations. But in the end, I felt very strongly that Alex Kappa should be awarded this, because, dude, this was not fun to see, and that's yet another thing. Like Joe Burrow, I think, is very, very great when like your tackles are losing, but he kind of needs a solidity in front of him in terms of guards. He's not the most mobile QB. And they don't want him to run around a lot, because, well, he has history of injuries. And when he was able to do what he was able to do with Alex Kappa, just, I would say, consistently like allowing pressures on him, that's even more immense for what type of season Joe Burrow had. And Alex Kappa, unfortunately, we will see. He's going to land another job. The question is if it's going to be a starter anywhere else after the season that he had. So, the roster rundown. has happened. We've handed the awards. Now let's talk about where this franchise is at, where their head coach is at, and what is out there. So in terms of how I rank Zac Taylor, I'm slightly lower on him than I would say probably general public is. I struggle to really give him too much credit, but this is like kind of hard because I feel like I might be harsh on him because with the way the Bengals is run overall, I would say that it requires some special type of management, being able to like hold guys together, to stick together despite, the finances not necessarily always being as there as they should be in terms of some extensions and in terms of like continuity within that roster. So I probably should be giving him more credit for that, but it's really hard to see for an outsider like me. So I can read about it, I can like try to like put myself into that situation, but it's like super hard to understand how much of this is Zac Taylor or how much of it is, for example, Joe Burrow, who I think is very, very nice leader. So with that being said, do I really consider him as like a special coach in terms of schemes? No. And that kind of leaves me with a B-, which is like still a solid grade. I don't think he's a bad head coach by any stretch of imagination. But unlike some guys, if he was let go by the Bengals, I don't think he necessarily has a job next day. In terms of how 2024 go, like you have to go really below average because, well, they didn't make playoffs, right? You can be happy about Joe Burrow being comeback player of the year and pretty much like your top guys like putting out ridiculous season, whether it's Trey, Jamar Chase, even T. Higgins, even Joe Burrow. Like I would say that for all of these four guys, they had their best seasons in their career, which is crazy. So you are obviously happy about that. But with the rest, the draft did not necessarily hit. You were not able to prolong contracts as you were expected to, and you did not make playoffs. In terms of QB, it might be controversial that when I like put money in this equation, I still go with 3 pluses. But to me, when you have an elite quarterback, it kind of doesn't matter that you are paying him. Like I know this might be lazy and this might be like more of a 2 pluses and 3 pluses should have been just, for example, Jaden Daniels. But I'm like, no, I really have to like the amount of weight that Joe Burrow and Lamar and Josh and Patrick Mahomes are able to pull for their franchises, even in terms of like bringing players here, being leaders of those respective franchises. I feel it's just worth 3 pluses. So, like I do understand that when I put money into equation, that this might not like super work out, but I would say on, let's say, the open market, if Dak Prescott is, let's say, for $50 million a year, Joe Burrow to me is $80 million a year. So even his contract in this scenario could be considered a bargain, though it's, compared to how much I would pay for other guys on this type of market. In terms of hot seat for Zac Taylor, I think it's like high, and that comes with, well, I don't think he's necessarily special head coach, and B, like this is 2 years without playoff appearance, and C, they once again were not prepared when the season started. They lost to freaking Patriots week 1. Like this is kind of recurrence situation that like Bengals are putting themselves behind the 8 ball with slow starts. So I really feel like if they don't make playoffs, Zac Taylor is gone, and that's where I would say hot seat 7 is absolutely justified. In terms of finances, like despite what I've said, they are still in solid situation because they have around $40 million for the season. Despite the situation with Higgins, with Hendrickson, and with Chase, all these guys have contract for this year. So it's not like, I'm saying $40 million free, but you have to pay these guys for this season. They are paid for this year. But one, they are not paid for next year's. B, in terms of finances, you don't really have rookies on great deals. C, you have problem from like top of the organization. So whilst you don't necessarily have monies put down the line, while you have some free cap space, while your top guys are paid for this year, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to pay, truth to be told. But I would say the financial situation is kind of like reasonably measured. Yet, if you like pushed me, is it plus or is it minus? I would say it's minus with the way things are. What the strength of this team? JJB, aka Joe, Jamar, and Burrow. Like, okay, I could have put the Higgins in there, but I just cannot. I don't think he's going to be a Bengal. So this is pretty much Jamar and Joe Burrow. The like combination of their names just was the best in this. Like JJB sounds to be as the best. In terms of division, it might look weird that this is again like neutral, because like for years this was considered a really great division. But I really feel like Cleveland Browns are in the worst situation in football, or like tied worst with New Orleans Saints. So you have really bad team. With the Steelers, I think they are damn average. Like, they will not have losing season probably, but they should not be a threat to win this division, because like they will be 9-8 pretty much, or 10-7, but I don't see them winning like 12-14 games. I don't think that's going to happen. And they obviously have a huge juggernaut in the Ravens. What's going on, guys? Are you fighting? Hey, calm down. Okay, so these are my Bengals cats are fighting. With that being said, we've ended up talk about this franchise, and now let's take a look at how this roster could shape up for 2025. You know, like here, this for example is something that I have not touched. So you can see Alex Kappa was not here. I was predicting him to be cut. And despite me thinking about bringing Trent Brown back, I really do expect that even in that scenario, Amarius Mims is going to be a starter. With money, like still being a little bit tight, I do feel like they will go with last year of Cordell Wilson, and kind of hope that him between Kairas and Orlando Brown is not going to be a huge issue. They do need to invest in terms of their guards, and I would say overall in terms of this offensive line. In terms of playmakers, again, I don't have T. Higgins here. I really doubt that he's going to be a Bengal for next season. I don't know how they would make this happen. Like, I don't. So when you look at this, okay, you have Jamar Chase. You hope that Chase Brown is going to make yet another progress. Mike Gesicki is, I would say, absolutely maxed out. And then you have Yosivas and Sample on this screen, which is like screen that, is reserved for like clear starters in my opinion. And the fact that these guys are kind of clear starters, or like the best this team can offer, like in terms of a backup for whether it's tight end, wide receiver, or running back, tells a lot. So not that much actually. In terms of defense, I'm sorry. Like here are the backups for the offense. I absolutely feel like Jake Browning is what you need to have as your backup for Cincinnati. Specifically, he's very cheap. He could be here for 2 more years on a cheap contract, because he's going to be restricted free agent post this one, and he absolutely shows that he is capable of pulling his weight within the system and making stuff happen. In terms of Zach Moss, I don't know if they will stick with him, but the thing is, there is just not much to be saved by cutting him, and he is still like a good veteran presence that he's always going to put his best out there, and I would say he's like bottom down. I don't expect him to be anything less than decent starter unless his wheels falls off, and I don't think that's likely when he's 28. So I kind of low-key do expect him to be the backup. And with Eric Hall and Jermaine Burton, I think they will hope that these guys can eventually step up and be put towards this. But will this happen? I would say for the start of the year, there will probably be backups. Now, let's take a look at this defense. And when I thought about this, I was like, the situation is kind of weird. Like, with the situation with the ownership, can you really go and be like, okay, Chris Jenkins and Miles Murphy are busts? Like, you kind of cannot afford that. So I'm actually like thinking, is this a situation in which like, well, we were not able to hit on our experienced guys even, like Sam Hubbard, like Sheldon Rankins. Let's just put these guys out there and see if they will swim if we just put a full load on them. Like most likely they will drown, but how worse it would be than what we had last season. Not that much. So, like really taking a chance on like really putting high prospects onto the fire and like see if they can survive out there. I was considering this an opportunity and possibility that Bengals might entertain. Though, like even if I do go with these two guys, like who is their next starting interior defensive player? Because when we talk about BJ Hill, he is, you could have guessed it, he was a 1 year player here, so they don't have him for next year. Trey Hendrickson obviously is going to be stable unless he's going to force their hand and they were like, okay, if you are holding out, we are going to trade you. I mean, if that happens, God help this defensive line. Behind them, Logan Wilson, Jeremy Pratt, that's a staple duo that's going to be like rocking the music behind this defensive line and kind of providing the necessary muscle and experience behind what could be a very young and hopeful defensive line. In terms of secondary, I really kind of went for the approach that, well, there are a lot of other holes on this roster. Let's go with what we have and see if they can provide, especially if defensive line is better. So I feel like this is room that they will not invest in because, well, they have some guys in, they have a lot of like interesting young players, and once again, they kind of need them to hit, at least a couple of them. So you are not going to call them a hit unless they are going to play. So I kind of do expect them not to touch this room very much. That being said, in terms of backups, this is the first and probably the last situation in which I'm like, I don't know who the backups are going to be specifically for the line. I'm like probably in more realistic world than I'm like projecting here. Here is where we would find Miles Murphy and Chris Jenkins. But it's like, who is playing the line then? Like, you don't necessarily have money to bring great guys. You don't have ton of draft picks. So what are you going to do? And it's not like you don't have other holes, especially guard. And with T. Higgins goes, like your wide receiver number 2. So when I talked in start of this video about the potential purgatory for the Bengals, despite having Joe Burrow, this franchise might be, I wouldn't say effed, but they are in trouble and they really need great offseason to figure a lot of shit out because they whiffed on some high-end draft picks. They did not get development from other guys that they expected to. They whiffed on some veteran signings and they are probably going to lose at least one of their like top 4 guys that are able to just drag this team to 9 wins, 10 wins, kind of no matter what. So on kind of not a very happy note, we are going to end this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know down in the comments what do you think about the situation and see you with the next one. Bye bye.